Hello dear students, welcome to the lecture 4 of Advanced Programming with C# course. So today we will continue from where we have left. I will start with copy and pasting our previous lecture and we will continue from the source code. So here, all of them already exist in our GitHub repository. So today we are going to see how to prevent SQL injection attacks. I had taken some other notes as well. All right. How to prevent UI freezing when adding new records. Okay, so let's start with renaming our lecture. Rename these two. This is not a complete rename, but it will at least change some of the names. Let's run our application. Remember what we have seen previous week. If you remember that when we were adding records to our database as a batch, it was freezing our UI. For example, when I click, you see UI is frozen. Therefore, I am not able to see or do anything until the operation is completed. How can I fix that? Fixing it is rather easy with tasking. We will use tasks to start subtasks and prevent running in the main thread. Currently, all of our code is running under main window class under the main window UI thread. Therefore, it is blocking our screen when running. How can we know that? Let me show you. So here I will show print the thread name. So this is the proper way of getting thread ID. Okay, to be able to use it, I have to add system threading. Okay, now we can get the thread ID. I think I will write another method to log threads. Let's add a class to do our extra things, global functions. Here, public void log thread. Can we get the calling method name? Test using Stemperant and compiler services. Here, we will do to log from multiple threads concurrently. I will use a stream writer, and to be able to use it, probably we need step.io. Put output stream writer, right? Logs equal to new stream writer. Let's give it a name, logs.txt, and we will make it UTF-8. I need it to be appending. Okay, there's bool append, so it will be true. Coding here. I will also assign autoflush, and to do that I need to have a constructor for this class. You see, static classes are not initialized to use, but at some point they have to get initialized, and which is when they are first called. When you first time call a static method from a static class, it will get initialized. I will show you that as well. So the initialization of static classes are same as other classes. So this will be the constructor. Okay, this is the constructor of the static class. We call it when the first time this class is referenced in the application during runtime. So here what I'm going to do is I will set flush as true, and here I will just log the thread ID such as write line. So let's add a datetime now plus double tap the thread ID to get the thread ID here. This, you see, I can add this or I can type the full path such as this, both works. Calling method equal to member name. So to show you when do these get initialized, I am putting a breakpoint here, here, and here. And here I will call log thread. Let's run our application to see in which order the static methods are getting initialized. Okay, so you see none of these breakpoints have yet reached because this static class is not initialized until you use a method, a variable, something from that in your application. So they are not basically getting initialized as soon as you run your application. They are getting initialized as soon as you make a call to that class. So when I click this, you will see it is starting with declaration of the static members. Actually, this is being a field. And then it will get into the constructor. Here, you see now it is inside the constructor. And then it will get into the method call that I have just did. but these two will not be get recalled again. Okay, these are one-time things when the first time the static class is getting initialized. So let's get the thread ID. The thread ID is 1. Then we write logs. Okay, so it is showing Titor. This is not what I wanted. Here, we will just pass our method main window method. Then let's add it to here, insert random students as well. Let's also open our debug folder. Okay, first time initialization, they are called and our method is called. Program started, and let's open our debug folder. And here we have logs, and we can see the log here, thread ID is 1. Then when I click this, now our method names are being written, and you see they are running under the same managed thread. Therefore, when we click insert, our interface is getting frozen until that method call is completed. So how we gonna prevent the freeze? It is easy. We are going to move this method into a new method inside of that method. Okay. And simply we will call task factory start new self function calling. Here we open curly brackets, and inside here we will just call our method. Okay. Now they will be running under different threads. We will see that. By the way, if you have noticed it that after the first time initialization, these are not executed again. This is the first time initialization, and then when we click another button, you see they are not called anymore. However, they are written on here. So you see now the thread ID is different. They are not running in the same managed thread anymore. Therefore, meanwhile this thread is working, thread ID 6, thread 1 is still available to work. I can start another instance of this, so there will be multiple random students click running. When I click, you will see now it is under another thread 11, and they are running at the same time. You can see how much CPU. You see a lot of CPU is being used by the SQL Server, Visual Studio as well. Each one will be completed at the background. We can also add a label to display as a counter of completed operations. I will stop the application. So here, let's add a label. So this will be our counter. Let's name it as tour. And all right, in here, we will display the number of added course with content equal to I to string, or say we can make it as K I. However, if we do this, it may be too fast. Therefore, we can go with 100 equal to 1. So it will be displayed once per 100 records is added. Here we can show it like this. However, this will not work. Do you know why? Because this LVL counter exists on main window thread. Therefore, we cannot access it from subthreads like this. When I run it, you will understand what I mean. You can access other threads, objects from different threads. Okay, you see, system invalid operation exception. The calling thread cannot access this object because a different thread owns it. So how do we fix this problem? We can fix this problem with is.dispatcher begin invoke. By the way, there is begin invoke and invoke. When we use begin invoke, it is asynchronous, so it won't be blocking the thread run. We will just move this to be here. By the way, you see I am writing dispatchers multiple times. We can prevent that happening. How? We can write a method here, private void update label, okay, message, and inside here we can simply do it like this. When you are writing code, you should convert everything into method calls, so you won't be doing duplicate coding. Here the content will be equal to message. All right, so simply this. Okay, now when we run the application, the screen will not freeze anymore. Dispatcher will handle even multiple threads try to access that label. It will handle both of them. So when I start the first one, you see it is running. And when I start another one, you see now they are competing each other. And I can start another one. Now 3 different methods are competing. you see, now each one of them is writing on the display differently. And when we see the thread IDs 1, 4, 11, 6, 12, each one is starting as differently. All of them is getting handled by the SQL Server. So when we check the CPU usage, we can see that SQL Server is running high. Our application is running high on CPU. Now you understand the logic behind using tasks to run application, run methods under different threads. However, our code is now at the moment vulnerable to SQL attacks, SQL injection, which is the most common way of hacking application servers, databases. So what is SQL injection and how to prevent it? I will show you.
SQL injection. In this section, we'll explain what SQL injection is, describe some common examples, explain how to find and exploit various kinds of SQL injection vulnerabilities, and summarize how to prevent SQL injection.
Let's assume that you have a database. You allow users to query with the name category as gifts. Query is here. Actually, I will show you this from our database as well. So let me open this managers. So let's continue.
What is SQL injection? SQLI. SQL injection is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to interfere with the queries that an application makes to its database. It generally allows an attacker to view data that they are not normally able to retrieve. This might include data belonging to other users, or any other data that the application itself is able to access. In many cases, an attacker can modify or delete this data, causing persistent changes to the application's content or behavior.
So you see, it is not only allowing attackers to see, but they can also modify or delete the data. It is extremely dangerous vulnerability, and it is the most common vulnerability that not professional programmers, engineers are doing.
In some situations, an attacker can escalate an SQL injection attack to compromise the underlying server or other back-end infrastructure, or perform a denial of service attack. What is the impact of a successful SQL injection attack? A successful SQL injection attack can result in unauthorized access to sensitive data, such as passwords, credit card details, or personal user information. Many high-profile data breaches in recent years have been the result of SQL injection attacks, leading to reputational damage and regulatory fines. In some cases, an attacker can obtain a persistent backdoor into an organization's systems, leading to a long-term compromise that can go unnoticed for an extended period.
Currently, our application is vulnerable to SQL injection attack. You see, we are allowing users to write queries from our interface on here. It is extremely bad, of course, but not that only. Normally, you wouldn't allow that, but let's add a simple interface to do something else. So let's open our table. Assume that we are allowing users to search at least students by name. I will add another tab item to show that screen, which will be SQL injection vulnerable. And let's call the header as SQL injection. Let's add a text box here. Normally, this is what would non-professional programmers, students would do. So the text box is taking entire space. Let's make it smaller. Okay, and here, let's remove the height. If you don't define manual height or width, then if you set it as text margin, it may change according to your screen size. The design of the interface is something different, and I am not getting into that right now. Let's say this is the username text box here. Let's add a label. Say student name for searching. Okay. Let's name this as name, say student name, list students. Okay, ETL students. Oh, I think we have the same name, students by name. Now we should not give any error. I will copy and paste the, okay, list here, copy near, paste it. Oh, it's taking the, let's add our own list. We have got some unnecessary code here, I think. We have tab control, tab item 1, tab item 2, tab item 3. Yeah, okay. And here we have a list box with, okay, I will just paste this as box 3. Okay, okay, we have we will remove it. Yeah. Okay, now looking good. Here, we will do the listing with searching. So how would you write a query to retrieve students by name? It would be something like this. Select all. It is star from TBS students where student name equal to, and when we write it, it will bring us that student. We can also write it as something like this. It will be a like query, so it will bring all the students that starts with like, contains a word. Now let's do it. We will get a data set results from DB connection, select data set, and our query. And here we will use the txt student. Okay, this is normally what you would write, right? So let's take here for better readability. This and here. Then we will do a for each to add records into. Okay, we are selecting datasets, so we will select data table. By the way, if your query has syntax error, this will be null, therefore you will get an error. To prevent it, if not equal to null, you can add some precaution like this. And here we will access listbox 3. Let's add, I think we can use the same code here. So you see, I would be doing copy paste. How can I fix it? Do you think we can fix it like this? Private void add record to listbox. What it will take a data row, then it will take the reference of listbox. It is simple as this one, this much. And here we will copy and paste this here. Here we will provide the listbox too. We also need to provide the data sets. Yeah, yes, okay. And here it will take the records. However, we have used a data table here, therefore it will be different. So let's use datasets instead of data table, or we can make this overloaded such as equal to null, data table to null. So if ds is null equal to null, then we will do new data sets, ds tables at the. Okay, I think it should work now. Now we can use this method. We will just call our method here. Okay, now they can take null values by default, so therefore I will provide the DT records. So when I provide this data row, this one and this one like this, what happens, do you think? So this is a local variable and it is an object class type, therefore its reference will be provided. And this one is field of the main window, therefore its reference will be provided. And this one is a local variable, therefore its reference will be provided. Okay, so it is not like we are copying and generating different instances of these objects. It is just we are sending their reference, their address to our method. Therefore, the changes that I make to these records in here would be reflected here as well, or anywhere. We are just providing their references, and references are address of the values, we can say that. Okay, now we will do the same call here. However, this time we will provide dt and we will provide this one. Okay, let's run our application and see if it is working or not. Let's look for 2D records. Yeah, you see there are so many students that has student name which includes 2D word. Okay, application starting and 2D list students. Okay, data table belongs to another table. Ah, I see. So since we have sent the reference of the data table, therefore it is throwing an error. How can we fix it? And here, okay, now it should work. By the way, we are not doing any null checks of ds and dt. What I mean is, we are expecting that this method will take at least ds or dt. It is not the best way of programming, but it should work. Okay, and here, okay, and here. Okay, something is not right. So what may it be? Okay, this thing. We are providing the incorrect listbox reference. We will provide 3. Okay. And we have to change the listbox name here. You see, we have avoided writing duplicate code. We have converted our code into a method call, which can support multiple methods. Okay, now it's working. However, this is open to SQL injection. How do you think? let's make an example of this. So our query is something like this, right? What I can do is I can end the previous query with this, and then, for example, I will change the student name of ID 8757. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do is it's something like this: update and TBS students. By the way, to be able to use it, you have to know the table name in this case, and there are also other methods to find out table names if your application is vulnerable to SQL injection. Set student name equal to, let's say, Toros University, where student ID equal to this one. Okay, this will probably list nothing. Okay, now I can look for Toros University as a student. Let's try it. Okay, let's see if our query is working. Okay, why it didn't work? Okay, this means that the rest of the query is treated as comments. Better, let's try this. So this will tell that the query ends here. The first query will give an error. However, the second should run fine. Oh, first query is throwing an error. So that's like this, fix. And then here, okay, we are doing some. Let me check the code. Let's try the link. So our query did become something like this. Currently, we are not writing it correctly. To fix it, I think I need to add. I also need to remove this string. How can I remove it? I think I can remove it like this. Yep, now it will work. Okay, so we need some other modification to our query, such as here, because it is expecting a string, it will add that string, and after our new query, we will set the rest as a command. And now when we run, yes, you see all of the student ID 7857 set as Toros University. So I have basically hijacked the application I did and SQL injection. Once you execute your queries naked, such as this one, attackers can exploit your system. So here I am ending the first query like this. Then I am appending the malicious code here. And then I am ending the rest of the query with this keyword, this special command in SQL. So you see now I am hijacking my database result. I can even delete all of the records in database. To do that, I would simply just need to, I can even drop the table, but I won't do that. Delete from EBS students. I can even delete all the tables in that database without even knowing their name, because we are executing the query with school database. And when I click list, now it is deleting all the records and they are deleted. Now when I select, you see empty. All records are deleted. So imagine that on your production servers, you leave your code vulnerable to SQL injection attack, and one day when you wake up, you see that your entire database is deleted. Everything is gone. Imagine that. It is a disaster. By the way, we also should clear items like we do here. So how we can prevent SQL injection? Prevention of SQL injection is made with parameterized queries in C#. So what we are going to do is we will convert our methods of database operations into parameterized queries. How do we write parameterized queries? I think I will start from a simple query and then I will turn that into a method, just our existing select data table method or select dataset method or our update method, which we have seen so far here. Select data row, select data table, update, delete, insert, and select dataset. All of these methods so far we have written directly executes the query. Therefore, all of them are vulnerable to SQL injection attack. So what we are going to do is we are going to turn this method into a secure method. So let's copy paste this into here. Okay, SQL. Okay, then we will have another version which will have parameterized secure list student. All right. So what will be the difference? I will start from simple example. Here we will use SQL command and we will write our command as previously, but with different parameterizing. So it will be like this. Select everything, start from TBS students where student name like, and here it will get a parameter. The parameters are defined with add character in front of them, and it will be something like this. And I will call it as parameter name here. This will be our SQL command. SQL command also takes SQL connection. Let's get the connection from our connection code from here. Okay, do that. Let's write it like this. Connection is opened. The connection is provided. We are not done yet. So our SQL command is ready. SQL command object. So you see this is a class in Data SQL client. Therefore, our object of SQL command is ready with having our query like this. We could also do something like this, I believe, as command text equal to, I think let's do that way first, this, then command dot connection is equal to connection. You see, you know that we should always use using clause if it is supporting. So let's check that whether command is supporting using or not. And yes, it is supporting using, therefore we will be doing using clause. Okay. And then what else? There is what else? Then we will add the parameters with their names. Command dot parameters add with value. There is add with value, and here you see there is parameter name and the object value. The parameter name is here. Let's give it a name as student name. So this add character is a special character in Microsoft SQL Server. I think it may be also same in MySQL, I am not sure, but probably, and also in other TSQL related database management systems as well, probably. So here the add student name is our parameter name, therefore first we provide it and then we provide the value. So what is the value in our example? It is this student name text that we are getting from user. Okay, everything is now ready because we have only one parameter here. You could also define the parameter type and the value itself like this. I think, yeah, let's use this method. Both works. This works and this also works. I think you can also use this method as well. So they are same, but here we are providing the data type of parameters. Currently this is string, therefore it can automatically understand when executing on SQL Server. However, if you are using a special object, then you can also define values like this. However, if you do it like this, it is becoming more generic, I can say. But yeah, I think we can do either way. I think let's do this type. This is because better. Finally, what we are going to do is executing parameterized query. It is, yeah, like this. Okay, SQL adapter. You see, we are using SQL data adapter. I think we can call it as SQL adapt. Okay, and it is taking command. Let's see if this does support using. If it is supporting, then you should use it. So SQL adapter class is also supporting using. Not every class supports it. And then we will use data table. Okay, we could also use, I think, data set. Yeah, you can fill a data table or data set. A data set means that you will be selecting multiple tables from the SQL Server. But if you do data table, then you will be selecting single table. And currently we are doing single table select. Now we have our data table, but I will define data table outside. I have to define data table outside of this scope to use it like here. Let me show. Okay, if you want to use your data table outside of the using scope, then you have to define it somewhere else, because you see this data table will be disposed of once our software exit from this using statement. Whatever inside using statement is disposed of, closed, and such after you leave the using statement using code block, code regional. So let's move this to the top of our code, and now we can use it. Since we are defining it with new data table, I think it won't be null ever. So it is fine, but we can leave it. Now this is the secure way of doing queries. Now let's try our method try to delete students from table like we did from vulnerable code. And you know that varchar is the character which is used for string. Okay, before we do that, we need to add some records. Now we are adding records to our database. You see, because of the label size, we can't see the entire code. So let's make this label bigger. So let's insertion started. Meanwhile, this code is working, we can work here. So let's list the students and nothing has come. So we need to add some ladder first. Still nothing is coming. So we may have a problem when you're executing parameterized query. To see that, you can use tools SQL profiler, and here let's start a tuning and execute our query, and then we can see the query executed here. Go to this. So let's see where is our error. There is no error. So maybe there is no such student as DA. Let's try this. Interesting. Now I remember the reason. Okay, so when you are using these percentages, you have to provide that inside your string. So it will be like this. Plus, this is the way doing like based query. As I said, this means that any number of characters, any characters, and any number of characters, any characters. It's a wildcard search. Now it should work. Okay, 0. Oh, and now since that we have added it, we don't need this anymore because you see, we use it to define string. Now, when you are doing a parameterized query, you don't need to put that string because the SQL server is handling that part. So the query is becoming like this, and a 0. Okay, now we can see. Now we can try our SQL injection like delete from EBL students and this. And when I run it, nothing will happen, because now we are doing parameterized query, and as you can see, it has failed to delete from TBS students. And now when I run the same query on my unsecure listing, it will delete it. So let's add another button to test it. Okay, SQL injection, list students by name, save. Okay, and then copy paste it. Okay, list students insecure, and this can be named as secure. And here we will delete the click event and compose another one. Click new event. Okay. And what we are going to do is simply we will take this element here. So now let's rerun. Oh, we have forgotten to reset the box. Okay, let's add them here. So let's try. So I will first try the secure one. List student secure, working, delete from TBL students and comment. Okay, so it is working. And when we remove, I think we can guess. Yes. When we check the SQL profiler, let's see how it is being executed here. So, okay, so what is the key point here? As you can see, this is the query that we have provided as a text here. This is the query. When SQL Server executes this query, it treats this text as a string, nothing else. You see, this have a special delete command here and special command here as well. All of them are treated as text. Therefore, they are not executed as a command of SQL Server. However, now I will execute the same command with insecure. Okay, executed. Now here the executed command, and you see, will it delete now? No, it won't delete because we didn't finish the previous query here. So we have to modify our query a bit more. Okay, let's try with secure and let's see if it is working. Yes, secure didn't delete any, and now insecure. Let's see the insecure command. Okay, here. And this is the executed command, and it has deleted all the records. Now when I select, as usual, you see nothing. Let's insert some random. When I execute this, you see this is select command. However, it is getting ended here. Now the second command starts and it deletes all the students. When I run, you see it has executed. All records are deleted. You see 11,442 rows affected, deleted. We are still adding new records. However, when it is executed, okay, secure, okay, and we'll come here. Oh, currently our insertion is getting executed and listed on here. Okay, now it is ended. It has. Okay, now we can find here. However, when we execute the query like this is the secure way of execution. You see, it uses exec sp execute SQL. When I click messages, you see nothing. No rows affected. However, when we execute the other one, which is insecure command, therefore open to SQL injection attacks, you see all rows are deleted. So this is what is about being parameterized queries and not. Of course, it would be extremely inefficient, incorrect to write everywhere where we are going to do queries like this. You can also imagine that. So we have to convert this into a method call like we did. Now it is time to do that conversion. So let's start with select data table. Okay, here. However, there will be a difference. What will be the difference? It will be this time db select, or let's name it as db parameterized. Okay, let's call it as parameterized select. Now, obviously, we cannot execute this with just query commit self false. By the way, what is commit if you wonder? This means that select everything without locking the table. So this is about extra performance. You don't need to think about that, but you can search at home. I use this to select tables that don't change or the data update is not important. So don't get confused with that. I'm just leaving it. You can search for it at the home. Okay, so what else we need? We need to provide our objects and their parameter names. To do that, I will compose a public class parameterized query, something like this. Inside that, we will have some properties. What kind of properties we are going to pick, or what we are going to hold? We will have the parameter name, parameter database type, and the parameter value. So we will have three object, parameterized query object. Let's call this something like this. The first one will be the parameter name string. The second one will be the database type. So it will be SQL DB type. You see specified SQL Server specific data type. Field property type of parameter. I wonder if we can make this as like this. Yeah, it also supports as a property. Then we will have object and the value of parameter. Now we will take query, or we can also make it something like a single class. So let's make it a single class, public class parameterized query. It will have public list parameterized query of objects. It will have string as our query. So we will just get parameterized query instance, let's say query object, whatever the name you want. Now we are going to move this code into the other code. We are going to use a data table because we will return a data table. We will open connection. We will use command. Okay, now we are going to add command parameters. How? The command text will be the query here. Connection will be set like this, and now we will do a for each iteration, and guess what? It will be in the list inside query object here, list of parameters, and each will be pair your object. Fine. And here we will use the same. So the parameters name will be your object dot parameter name, then the type your object dot type of parameter, and the value will be equal to your object dot value of parameter. Fill the adapter and return to result. We should also put this inside a try catch block, because when you are working with database connections, there can be always some errors that you may not catch. Here we will return, and here we will just log whatever you want. Okay, so our parameterized query is ready. Now I will write this method with lesser code. Let's name this as improved or version 2. Okay, now you will see how much simpler it will be. So we will compose an instance of parameterized query equal to new query, how many parameters we have. We have only one parameter, so param query will be here. Now let's compose parameters query object equal to new parameterized query object, and here we can define them like this. So the first will be parameter name equal to this one. Okay, then type of parameter equal to, you see, IntelliSense is automatically filling the available or most probable options. Student name is var character, and then value of parameter will be equal to txt student name text. However, plus like, the white character. And then we will add this into, okay, we don't put here. We will add this into our param query. Here, list of parameters, add your object, and then we will just make this dt result equal to db connection, or I think we have added that as a static class reference here, you see. Therefore, I can directly access the methods and fields properties inside that. So it will be db parameterized select. It will take only the query object, nothing else, which is here. We are done for. Now our method call is ready. So you see how many lines of code this is. It is around 16, 17 lines. And how many lines of code this is? This is around 22. So you see there aren't that many difference. However, there is one great difference. Now that we are able to modify our database connection here, the method here, and it would be effective immediately at everywhere. However, if we were writing each time like this, then we would be change the code everywhere where we have used it. But in this case, it is much more simpler. Also, I could write this as a single line as well. It's totally possible. It's up to you. So this is the methodology that you have to follow. In your final project, I am expecting you to write your code such as this. Wherever possible, write a method and prevent duplicate code. Prevent copy-paste of code. So this is what you should do. Now, instead of version 1, we will call version 2 and see whether if it is working or not. Okay, AS, student, BA. I think we have none right now. Let's add some record. BA, AS, A0. There is some problem. Let's see what could be the problem here. Okay, we have set the query. We have set parameter name, type of parameter, value of parameters. Oh, this is the incorrect text. We have to use the txt student name. That is why we had provided incorrect text box name. Okay, now it is working. As expected, it is totally secure. For example, let's end it here. And this, yeah, nothing has happened. You can see that. Have done select query. What about update? Updates are not much different. So let's compose update query as well. Okay, here I will use parameterized update. Okay, and it will take same object. This time we won't need data table because we won't return anything. And here now we will do execute non-query. So there are several options: execute non-query asynchronous, execute reader asynchronous, and execute scalar. Executes the query and returns the first column of the first row in the result set returned by the query. Additional columns or rows are ignored. So executes the query returns the first column of the first row. Okay, so this is just for returning single result of the single column. And also there are some other execute options. So we just need execute non-query, and we can use this for update, delete, insert, update, delete, or insert. We can also return integers for number of affected row. So it will return integers. Yes, okay. And if an exception occurs, it return -1. So -1 is not possible. Why? Because it can be either 0, no rows affected, or positive. So -1 means that an error occurred in our query. Let's add a button to update all the student names in our database here. Okay, so Let's name it as secure update, secure update. Okay, so you see the size is different, so let's make it interesting. Why they are getting same time? The top item, the top control margin, yeah, that is the error. So let's remove it. When you define things with margin, they are automatically getting scaled according to your screen size or other objects, elements, whatever. Okay, so let's move them here. I don't show you much about interface design. It is something that you can, or let's say you should learn yourself. The design is more related to your skills. I don't have much design skills, so therefore it is something that you have to work and improve yourself. Okay, so what this button going to do is it will just simply update all the student names, such as dative students, set student name equal to, let's say, a plus student name. And then we can also add var query, but I won't add it right now. Always make it something like this, so we can append var query as well. So it will be something like this. Let's copy and paste this code. Parameterized query, here are query. So what we are going to do is we will append text here, let's say name or addition, and here addition, there won't be this. Parameters are added. Finally, parameters are updated at insert with this, and it will return a number of rows affected. We can show that as a message box plus. Okay, so this is how you do update, delete, or insert as parameterized query. When you are inserting user values into database, you should always use this approach. Otherwise, your system would be vulnerable to SQL injection. So let's list the students. It will list everything. And now let's add Toros to beginning of their name, such as this. So when I click Cure Update, it will update all the rows. Okay, you see 50,000 rows updated. And now relist. Now, okay, you see Toros is added to their name, appended to end of their name. Okay, like here, as you can see. We can also verify that from here. You see the name now appended like this. So this was the secure update. We have shown how to update with parameterized query, but we can also delete the records non-parameterized query as well. So let me add that too. Okay, delete record by ID. Sometimes you want to write code quickly. If you are not using any input from the user client side, then you can use raw queries. So the parameterized queries are important when you are handling unsanitized data. When you are writing your own query, your selects, your updates, your deletes, and there is no possible way of exploitation, then you can use direct SQL queries, direct raw queries. So this will be delete unsecure. It will simply delete record something like this. Let me show you something like this. Okay. Yes. Well, let's change the name of this method. So to keep them as same, db update delete insert. When you change your method, you can click rename and it will rename all the references you see. Currently we have only single reference now we are going to have the other reference as well. It will be here, and the query will be simply first write the query in your server management studio, id equal to, so this is our query, and here we will take it from txt user student name text. So this is totally unsafe. However, I just want to show you how to do it as well. Since we don't have any unique identifier of students in our database currently, it will delete multiple rows. So let's list the students. Okay, now I will delete all the students with 61 or 64, 95, 64, 95. Delete records, 9 rows deleted. When I click, I have now they are done. This is how we call insecure. We could also call it as secure, like here. Same, nothing different. We have seen everything. Probably next week I will show you how to handle different databases such as SQLite database with other methods or DBC if I remember correctly, and then By the way, there is also frameworks to prevent SQL injections such as Entity Framework, and I will also show you that as well. So don't worry about that. This is hardcore programming. We do everything ourselves. However, when you do this way, you have much more control of your code and you can write much more effective, let's say, tuned code as well. This is hardcore, but I would say this is better from my point of view, especially in the high performance required projects. Okay, so I think this is good for this week. So end of lecture. Hope to see you next week.